Greetings, everybody. I am Baba Makanjuola of Ori and Knee, and today we are in some Menergy with some very good brothers that I've been knowing for years, and I appreciate every one of them and for what they've done in the community and what they're still doing in the community, and their positions, their minds, and what I call their Oris, how they think and how they process. So we are all here to have a very menergetic, if that's a word, Jesse Jackson, a very menergetic conversation about some topics that directly affect our community, number one, but we want to give it an understanding from a masculine perspective that tends to get silenced from the here every now and then, right? So, or all the time, seems like nowadays. So we're going to have a few topics. What we're going to do is throw out a few topics of discussion, and we're going to let you guys take the microphone and give your perspectives. Now, the only thing I do want to try to do is, for the sake of time, and we got 5 people here with opinions. I know some of them are going to get emotionally charged, but let's try to keep it between like about a minute and a half on responses so that we can let everybody else reply. Is that okay?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, cool. So let's go in. I thought of like a subtitle for this Menergy session, and I came up with the privileges of manhood. I want y'all to let that sink in for a minute. The privileges of manhood. We know a privilege is something that you don't have a right to, right?
Yeah.
But there's things in manhood that gets mistaken for rights. Like you just, because you're a man, you have a right to do that or have that. Are y'all following me a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of those things is that when we tend to choose a mate, my question is having a mate a privilege or a right? Do y'all feel like having a spouse is a privilege or a right?
All right, tell us the definition of privilege again, your premise for privilege.
Privileges are basically things that you haven't earned it, somebody has the power over you to acquire whatever it is you're seeking to have. You don't really have total control over it. Like they say your driver license is a privilege, it's not a right, which means you don't really get to stand on much of a leg with a driver license, but a right is something that can't be taken from you. It is naturally, inherently yours. It is yours, it belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I mean, just first thought would be it's a right within the premise of a necessity, right? I think that a lot of times we overlook as a culture of men, right? As a culture of men, I think sometimes we overlook the power of having the correct or right mate. And I think that if that's something that you're able to find, or if that's something that you're able to actually come in contact with and recognize what you have found, then you have a right to that, in my opinion. I think you definitely have a right to that. That's why I say I think it's a right within the premise of necessity, because a lot of times, you know, generally speaking, we're supposed to be strong, we're supposed to be resilient, all of these things, which we are, but at the same time, it's very necessary to have the right mate, in my opinion. Yeah.
I see.
That's a loaded question, brother, and I'm gonna tell you why. Based on your premise, your definition of privilege. So that's a loaded question. So yes, what the brother's saying, I'm 100% on board with that. As men, yes, we have the right to have a mate. Now, but when you use the term privilege and how you're using it, so when we deal with it from a legality, a law aspect, it's a privilege when you start talking about marriage and things of that nature, right? Yeah. So that's a rabbit hole. Now, as men, yes, we do have the right to have a mate. Now, when we start commingling with the system, now we're talking about privileges, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Let me put a little bit more meat on the bones for this thing. or some veggie meat on the bones for this thing. There's an African proverb that says, "Do not apply for a position that you do not qualify for."
Mm.
Right? And what I'm saying is that, see, we tend to think we have a right, but having a spouse is this is what I've learned. Having a spouse is not a right. A right is something that you've earned, you put the work in for, and you have the right now to protect it. But if you haven't done the work for it, to acquire it, you don't have a right for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're not technically qualified for that position.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. See, that. I think that's where the lines are blurred, though, because my son, right? I'm just speaking from my child's perspective. My son has a right to everything that I own, everything that I'm able to acquire in this life, right? Doesn't necessarily mean he's capable of handling these things right now, or he's in position to handle it, but he does have the right to it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where like the lines get a little bit blurred right there, because I understand what you're saying, and I actually agree with what you're saying 1000%, but I still think that the right is there. You might have to do certain things to get, that's like saying like, hey, does any team in any sport have the right to the championship? Of course they do. They have the right to it, but that don't mean they're going to get it. You got to put the work in. You got to do the work. You got to make the necessary sacrifices. You have to do the things that is necessary to obtain whatever that goal is or whatever that right is. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think the lines get a little bit blurred.
I get it.
I'd like to say that it's interesting you've gone here first. Let me qualify this. They say I'm an herbalist, but my PhD is in ontology. Ontology is a part of psychiatry that they got rid of because it helped people fix things. It has to do with you being you on the planet, being the most you could be, not surviving, but learning how to thrive. That's called ontology. Okay. And in that, it's a lot about subconscious programming and what we think words mean and how we speak them. Most of the words we're using, we don't really know what they mean. So if you're talking about a rite, you're talking about rituals. This comes from a ritual. You, like you say, like the brother said, you got to put the work in. It's what is your walk? What is your purpose? See, a lot of folks, they may not have their purpose together. Even this thing about being a man, they're not sometimes supported in a way where they've gone through the ritual. So they've gone through the thing that you need to go through to actually be a man, to have the right to a woman, to have the right to children. So now we have this whole thing in our society, we got the law, the government, that's the law. But there's a bigger law. There's the law of the all, the law of the universe. And in universal law, you have the privilege to do whatever you like if you give yourself permission. You have to give yourself permission, but look at it as being the CEO or the captain of a ship. You need to know where you're going. What is your outcome? Where would you like to end up? Once you have that, and this is what I say should be taught to the youngsters, is you first need a purpose and a goal. You need, if you're the captain of a ship, what's our destination? Is it to watch television and do whatever they're doing? Because a lot of times people today, they're joining groups because the tribology, we join a group because this is what it is. This is how we do it. And like I said, I come from hip hop. I was a hip hop producer for many years, and everybody wanted to do what they did to make money at a point. It was all about making the money. I said, well, no, aren't you making a statement as an artist? No, we got to get the people what they want. So people are following a lot of the times something that is, as my brother Sadiki says, is artificial intelligence. You see, it's not based on anything with a real foundation. So yeah, you have the privilege and you have the right if you have done what you need to do to have a foundation to stand on. Without those, these are like words that mean something different to everybody in every culture and every language.
That part.
Yes.
I say. Brother Mark, you got anything you want to chime in on it, brother?
No, I think everyone is kind of threading along the same lines of what right and privilege is. I mean, you know, we're all sovereign beings, right? So we don't have a right over anyone's body. We don't have a right over anyone's mind. But I do think we earn the opportunity to share an experience with the person. And then when we fall out of that, the deliverables that we are supposed to have within this particular situation, then we lose that opportunity. We should lose that opportunity. We should not feel that we have a right to be with anyone just because of a certain role or a certain station in life, right? I think when you start talking about rights and privilege, it gets a little, as the brother said, the lines can get a little blurred. I like to look at it as every human being is a sovereign human being. And if I am going to have an exchange of emotion and love with that person, then I have to come, as you said, brother Jasir, I have to come to the table, as the brothers used to say, I have to come to the table correct. I have to come to the table with, you know, with the ability to help grow the relationship or grow the love in a way that's going to, you know, bring joy to the situation for both people. If I can't do that, then I should gracefully bow out of that dynamic.
Exactly. And I asked this question, y'all, because me doing this Menergy work for the last year and a half, so I've talked to a lot of brothers, and they tend to have this self of entitlement concept. Like, because they showed up with their masculinity, that their wife is supposed to respect them. Like, I'm with the Dr. B plan. Like, if you don't have a plan and you're not working the plan, what guarantees you a right to have respect from this woman? Like, I don't understand that. Which leads me to the next question. The expectation of respect. A lot of brothers, I'm not saying anybody here, I think we are beyond that at this point, but a lot of brothers tend to expect respect, particularly from their spouse. You know, that whole thing, I'm the king, you should listen to your king at the castle. But if you ain't made a castle and you ain't doing nothing kingly, then why do you deserve respect? I don't understand that. Have y'all encountered this, or do you know anybody that's with this mindset? And then what do you think about the expectation of respect? What should guarantee the respect of a spouse from a man? I mean, from his woman. What guarantees a man respect from his woman to y'all? Is it the check? Is it the protection? What does that look like?
See, a lot of times you got to look at how the man is coming into this world and who he is. You see, and you will attract sometimes something that matches you or something that is opposite you, something you need to work on. Sometimes you will attract something that's going to test you. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And when you get tested, you're going to get stronger because, you know, steel sharpens steel. You see? But when you're in a situation or you meet a situation where the magnetic attraction is so strong, you don't have to demand anything. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be mutual respect. It's going to be reciprocal. But because of the way we have been programmed in this society, you know, the things that people desire and what they want, right? And what they look for sometimes creates a situation where the man now has to, he got to act like a certain way, you know what I'm saying, to keep this woman. And a lot of times, you know, when you're in the beginning of a relationship, you're in the honeymoon period. So you're totally conscious. Everything, your shirt, you know, your tie, you know, your cologne, you got to talk, you holding it down. But then after you hook up after a while, especially after you've had at least seven intimate interactions, all of a sudden subconscious comes online and the real you pops out and the real her pops out. So a lot of times we're not being real in the beginning. You got to be real. You got to be transparent. This is who I am. So if I were to meet somebody, I might tell them, look, I don't do holidays. I don't meet such and such. I don't go to these places. I don't do this. I'm not trying to impress you. You see, I'm good. This is who I am. You know, and me as being Dr. B, I tell people up front, look, this is not what I'm doing. And if that's what you need, I don't care how fine you are. I don't care how much money you got. You know, I have a purpose. I have a goal as something that I'm doing. And if you would like to be part of this, we can work together and we can look at what you're doing and make this one. But that is a holistic approach. And that's what we've got to get into, a more holistic approach and not this approach that we've been given of what a relationship is, what love is, because a lot of folks don't even know what love is. It's basically a noun. It ain't a verb anymore. You know what I mean? There's no action.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at. If you have those things, you don't have to ask for respect. You don't have to demand it. It will be respectful. You will respect that person. They'll respect you. It'll be there without having to force anything.
I'll say, bro.
I think that's true. I also personally believe that respect is the reciprocation of the commitment to the journey and the direction, right? So the journey and the purpose, rather. So I'll piggyback even on what he was saying. In my perception, it's like you'll receive respect once a mate rather knows this is what the journey looks like. This is what the purpose of what I'm doing as a man looks like. And if she commits to that journey, if you're truthful and you lay the cards on the table, this is what it looks like. And the minute that she commits to it, the man's commitment to that, she'll automatically, I believe, the reciprocation will be respect from it, because it's like, I told you that this is where I was headed. She agreed to then go with you, right? This is where the ideology of the perfect helpmate. Well, first I have to be doing something for her to be able to help in the first place. So I have to know where I'm going and I have to know what I'm doing first. Once she sees that I'm committed to that, because that's where it really comes down to a lot of times. A lot of times we share our ideas, our thought process, even things that we intend to do with our mate. And then things happen along the way. And then we change direction. And then it's in her natural makeup to remind us of what we said when she agreed. And that causes a problem for us. Wait a minute, baby. I thought you said that we were headed to the, and you done changed your mind because things got in the way or natural circumstances have happened. A woman will respect the fact that once they see your commitment to what your purpose is, to what your journey is, I believe it's just natural reciprocation that she will respect that. And that's just my personal experience, you know, and that's what I believe.
Shay, y'all making this real easy, bro.
All right, so let me take us down the rabbit hole a little bit, right? And I agree with the brothers. When we talk about respect, whether it's black man, black woman, right? We talk about that. But before we even get together, we have to deal with what's brought into that relationship. Childhood trauma, fears, overactive central nervous systems, right? Neurological imprisonment. So like all these things we have to deal with, because when we start talking about things like respect, integrity, balance, alignment, right? All of these different things, that matters. What's the person's history coming into this situation? Has those things been healed? You see what I mean? Is a person working on those things? So if a person has a history of being disrespected, right? Or being disrespectful, or whatever type of traumas that a person would deal with that would lead to certain attributes not being effective in a relationship. Those things have to be dealt with. When those things are dealt with, now we can start talking about the alignment, the respect, and all the things that the brothers are talking about. But I think oftentimes we think that we're coming into situations whole, and we're not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not coming into these situations whole. So there's work that has to be done on both sides of the spectrum, right? The man and the woman. Even when we talk about masculinity and femininity, like what the hell does that mean, right? When we're talking about two different people, a man and a woman who may have different definitions, different narratives, different experiences, different traumas, different fears and things of that nature. So ideally, I love what the brothers are saying, and that's what we strive for ideally, obviously. Those other things as well play a role. And that's what makes this such a rabbit hole, when two people come together, this beautiful man, this beautiful woman come together, hopefully with the proper intention. And whatever that intention is, they both agree with.
Yeah, I think that when I think about the ideal of the expectation of respect, I think, we talk about historical understandings of what the brothers just talk about, what historical sort of understanding of positions you come to a relationship with about what respect is. And I think a lot of times men come with their respect is tied to their ego, right? And it's not tied to it's like a higher spiritual calling. And so when something happens that triggers some sort of, maybe, but they said maybe some sort of traumatic, past, trauma, it's like, you're not respecting me. But it may not be that. It just may be that the person is challenging you to a higher your higher calling. All right. So I think it's important that when we come to the table and we talk about expectations of respect, we have to make sure that our ego is not intertwined with that concept, because that could really derail many moments of potential growth in a relationship.
Yes, sir.
I think the foundation also has to be truth, though, just so we can be clear, because I think what everyone is saying is also underlined in truth, right? You have to first be truthful with self first, right?
Yes.
And with your spouse, because we're speaking from a man's point of view. So I'm sure women have their own point of view of what they would see. We can't speak to that. We're not women. But from a male's point of view, we have to first be truthful with ourselves in order to be able to lay that in front of her. Because a lot of times what everyone's saying is like, when you don't have the foundation of truth, you run into all of these problems we're talking about. The rabbit holes that we're talking about going down, you run into these problems when you first haven't been truthful. Because we know as guys, as men, a lot of times we might have an objective with this woman. And if we feel like being completely transparent and true with her will stop our objective, we will hold back on certain informations that we share with her. So then we'll find ourselves in a position to where the respect is not naturally being given the way we think it should. And that might be possibly because she see through some of the quote unquote bullshit, you know what I'm saying? And that's because we weren't truthful from the beginning. So I just want to say, I agree with everybody. I think everyone has excellent points, but as long as it's rooted within truth, I can't see how it can go wrong, because this is where we just, like, everyone that we think is going on the ride with us is not. So you have to be truthful in order to come to that conclusion. Just because you had interest in a person, a woman, and you thought it was going to be a particular thing, if you're completely truthful and it doesn't naturally mesh, that is the cue to say, this is not what I thought it was. We go our separate ways. But it's hard to figure that out when both people have hidden skeletons per se in the closet. We weren't transparent with one another. So I just think truth has to be the foundation of it.
And to touch on that just a little more. See, some of this is so deep because we could just be on this truth thing all day.
All day.
Right? Because when you came out the womb, even when you were in the womb, right? Your environment is what programmed your DNA. It's the environment that programs your DNA, not, the genes have a determined thing that they do. Okay, so you came out. They began to sing songs to you. You know what I'm saying? Some of these fairy tales, some of these lyrics, some of the melodies that were taking you into a place where you were being programmed like a computer to live in the world that's not based in reality. Then, you had the fairy tales. I mean, from your parents was the first liars. Santa Claus? I mean, come on now. I mean, do you know how deep that is? People still waiting on Santa Claus today. They want a free ticket. You know what I'm saying? If the tooth fairy, she can come through your wall. She got money. You understand what I'm saying? She gonna put it under your pillow. You're not even gonna wake up. She wants your DNA. I mean, this is what is this? The soul catchers? You see, a lot of these things were actually horror stories. Your parents, they sung them to you. Then it was the church, and then the politics, and then the news was on constantly. So you sometimes don't know what truth is because the people that brought you here were not standing on a firm foundation of reality or truth or trust. When I found out about Christmas, I snapped. I was like, well, wait a minute. This is deep, man. I had to look at my parents differently. So, and a lot of times you look at your relationship based on your parents, who was there, who wasn't, what they did, and what they didn't do. So when we get down to truth, a lot of times people want a fairy tale. You got to give them the lie that they desire. A lot of times they want that lie. They want to hear these stories. If you want to get that fine woman, you just, you got to tell these stories. And, that's how the pimps get the hoes. They talk about this great future one day. We're going to be together, me and you. And the woman, a lot of times, she is so programmed so deeply because she's magnetic. See, we're electrical. So our energy is moving out. We're doing things, but she's absorbing things, see? And she's listening to you. And you learned how to be so convincing. You see what I'm saying? You're setting up a whole movie. It feels good. You see, but it's not based on actual facts. So we got to get away from even the word truth. What are the actual facts? Do you know what I'm saying? If you could tell the woman the actual facts from day one, you see what I'm saying? She's either going to be with it or not. And there's some women that are attracted to that truth. I mean, the ones that's really going to be down with you. Right. She's like, I'm glad that you're being truthful. You're homeless. You're homeless. And your car only got 3 wheels, and you've been trying to buy the rim for the other one for 6 months. Right. So you become, immersed in a situation that's from the foundation based on reality. Once you get that, and there's a lot of people, the person for you sometimes is the one that doesn't look anything like you think she's supposed to look or act. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a certain vibration. It's a magnetic resonance. It's an electromagnetic connection that happens, and this comes from the soul. This ain't got to do, because spirit, see, that's your personality. That's your spirit. Your soul is, everybody got that. We all have soul. We're all sovereign, as the brother said. We're all sovereign. We have this energy flowing through us, but sometimes we're going to meet things that are going to challenge us to be totally real. And we don't even learn this sometimes until we get older. You know what I'm saying? You might be 40, 50, and all of a sudden you decide to get real, but you've been lying all this time because that was the thing to be a man, was to lie. That was the program. We're like computers. What was the how was your father? How was your mother? How was your uncle? So when I came up, it was all about being cool, big lapels, and you know what I'm saying? You like a player, it was the player in the community that was the man. That's a man right there. You see? So sometimes the woman is looking for somebody like her father, even if he wasn't there, but she heard about the father through the mother. If the mother was always like, your father was this and your father was that, she automatically will be attracted to a man, even if it's disagreeable, who's like the father. That's right. So it's the programming. We've got to do a lot of subconscious programming and conscious programming before we can even say what truth is and where we really stand and what we stand for. And sometimes that takes time. And this is where we need to set up camps and boot camps that get real, that drop it all the way down. You need brothers like us at a boot camp like that. Like this is just a taste of how deep this can be, because it's the repetition of pleasure and pain that programs your subconscious. But what is pleasure and what is pain depends, because some relationships, it's about pain. And you say, well, they fight all the time, but they make love like crazy and they tight. You see what I'm saying? Because that's what they recognize as love. So these words get funny when you get down to the mainstream people. We almost have to create a group. And I'm down for this, brothers. We can create a group that we have created this, subgroup of people. We create a community where we can teach brothers, and we have some elder sisters and some sisters working with the sisters, and you create something outside this, because where this thing is at right now, this thing is over. You can't fix this. People say, well, Dr. B can't save the world. Brother, are you crazy? We need to let this go. That's right. It's going to hell in a hate. Let it go, because the programming is so deep on so many levels. Right down to the food you eat. You meet a sister, you's a vegan. She's eating pork chops, and you like her because she's so fine that you're going to deal with her. Well, guess what? You're doing something that's against the law already. Unless she's willing to change, and sometimes she's just gonna change for you. She's just gonna change for you. Soon as she get rid of you, she's back to eating pork chops again.
Exactly.
So it's all about programming and reprogramming.
Can I say
That's what we got to
thing about the truth when I use because this is powerful to me. I pay attention to words, right? So I write a lot. I write every day. When I use the word truth, what I'm speaking on specifically when it comes out of my mouth, I'm saying the truth of the child knows instinctively when he is born or she is born to suck the breast. I'm not talking about the learned behavior, which I'm agreeing with you. I'm not talking about the learned behaviors that we all experience in our communities and environments. I'm talking about that truth that is irrefutable. Nobody told the baby. Nobody has ever explained or told the baby to suck the breast. It's almost God's will, right? Because people use that a lot. Well, if it's God's will, bro, these are religions and things like this, and we can go on all day about religion and things of that nature, but I'm just speaking of that natural truth. That's why I said a man has to have, what is your truth? What is your truth? Because that's hard to show. It's hard to be transparent. To say I want something and you think that if I show this part of me though, I might not get it. A lot of us have, not to say we will at where we're at today, but a lot of us have, and I'm just speaking for myself, we'll cover that part up. I'm gonna be truthful up until this point, because I think if I go here with her, she ultimately is not gonna conform in the manner that I'm looking for. You know what I mean? So that's the truth when I say, I think this is great though, like hearing these perspectives.
I love what I'm hearing, and I really, for me, sometimes it's like, how can I make this thing the most simplest way of understanding something? So when I think of truth, I think about what brother just mentioned about soul, and then you mentioned about, the sort of internal instincts that a child has. So when I think about truth, I think about, what is it in the soul that is telling me to do, right? And so when I step outside of that, right, when I start doing things that are worldly, there is a internal disturbance that occurs. We ignore that often, right? And so we walk away from that, and then that disturbance becomes greater than is projected out. So for me, if I think about truth and teaching people to connect to truth, I say, what does your inner soul, what does your inner self, what is your conscious, your inner conscious telling you? Is what decision you're making, do you feel a sense of peace with that? Does that create joy for you, and will that create joy for everyone around you? And if we operate from that perspective, then we can walk in truth. But when we talk about, go back to the ideal of, expectations and respect, if we're demanding respect just because, there's going to be a part of us inside talking to us that says, that's not right, because you haven't earned that. That something is not, that you're not in a position to ask this person for respect. But what happens is we oftentimes don't listen to that internal voice, that soul. We walk away from that truth.
Freeze on. Oh, not the freeze mode.
Causes us
It's breaking
that
up.
we aren't ready to do. Hopefully I can come back soon. All right, I think I'm back.
There you go. You're back now. But y'all making this real easy. I wanted to say something, but y'all done pretty much taken everything I was gonna say for y'all.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna moderate at this point. Y'all keep it up. I'm gonna move to the next one here. Sadiki made this suggestion earlier about us basically identifying this thing we're talking about. And at this point, I think it's a good time to identify the core principles of masculinity. For me, I'm gonna be honest, I never learned it until I got grown. I didn't know what it was. I grew up with a mother that was very volatile, and a stepfather that came over every other month. I didn't know what that looked like growing up. and it made me more emotional than balanced like I should be. So there is really no classes on this unless you have a good man in your life. So the question to me is, what for those of you who have had that training, that's great. For those of you who had to learn from the school of hard knocks like me, what is that definition, core definition of masculinity when it comes to being a father, a husband, an uncle, a grandfather, or even a son? What does that even look like in this society? Because it's kind of piggybacks from what we just talked about. And what
Yeah,
I
I would
will
like to
add
know
to that,
myself. 'Cause
what
I
I
don't
will
know.
add to that thing we said, the previous question is that, see, a lot of women are filing for divorces at rates way higher than men. What does that mean? Men, a lot of men don't know what their purpose is, and they have no direction that they're taking these women in. I was one of them. I can honestly admit that. They didn't have a direction they were taking these women in. And like Topic said, eventually they're going to either see it or not. And if they don't see it, they jump in ship. So to me, that comes from a person that doesn't really know, hasn't seen, hasn't been around, hasn't experienced true masculinity as a model of some sort. My question to you fellas is, what does true masculinity, the core principles to you, as most of us here are probably husbands, fathers, uncles, maybe some of us grandfathers and sons to somebody. What does that look like? Masculinity, if you had to put it in a bite-sized definition.
So are you
I've learned
referring
is
to, because
vulnerability.
you mentioned here. So are you referring to from a Euro-Western standard of what quote unquote manhood is, white patriarchy? Or are we referring to something else? That needs to be something that is definitely addressed. So like, let me give you an example. So when we talk about universal laws been mentioned, the soul's been mentioned, right? All of these high-end aspects of who and what we are have been mentioned. When we talk about those things, what do we tie them to? So when we say universal law, the soul, and these different things, I'm tying it to my. So if I'm dealing with whatever I'm dealing with, I'm tying it into my because one way or another is going to be linked and connected. So my is primarily truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, reciprocity, balance. All right. So obviously those are things that are going to be part of a template of anything that I'm creating or manifesting. Right. So then when we start talking about protection and all these other things, they're going to fall in line with my protection, justice. And I can go on and on and on with the things in their connections. If we're dealing with manhood and relationships, obviously there has to be complementarity, balance, those types of things. So for me, my foundation would be my which is a Kemetic foundation. And I know you will find that all over the African continent. It may be called different names, but you're going to find it whether it's Yoruba, Akan, Dogon, so on and so forth. You'll find those concepts in those teachings and ways of life. So for me, it's my that's the foundation. And I think that's something that we can look at from a historical perspective, as opposed to looking at something from just the perspective of today. And in dealing with today, and I'm gonna wrap this up, in dealing with today, we're dealing with things that is foreign to our innate essence, our soul, our spirit, our beingness, how we view each other as men, how we view women, our women, all of these different things, right? So these are things that I think have to be taken into consideration. Whenever relationship comes up, my thing always is we shouldn't just deal with it from the perspective of what's going on here in America. We should deal with it from the perspective of what was we doing prior to America? What was we doing prior to white people? So these are things that I think we should definitely address and be part of the conversation.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. Because for me, I have my perspective of it. But for me, if I'm in Egypt or if I'm in South Central LA, I am who I am.
No doubt.
So wherever I go, that's my perspective goes with me. My ori, my mind, my way of thinking and training is going there too.
That's right.
So for just for that foundational purpose, whatever yours is, like you're in LA, you're in LA still, Sadiki, right?
Yeah,
So wherever you are, your ma'at follows you, right?
that's
Wherever
right.
Dr. B is, follows him, and vice versa. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that whatever your background of understanding is, because
Yeah.
usually it's going to be a common denominator. There
Absolutely.
most of the really good stuff has a
Absolutely.
common denominator wherever you go.
Absolutely.
I've seen a whole lot of Ifa in Ma'at and a whole lot of Ma'at in
Absolutely.
Ifa.
Absolutely.
So wherever you go, you'll see the same common thread. But the thing is, where we are, it's been for us to exist as men that we are in our minds in
Mhm.
America is a hard thing to do with women who haven't been trained in the same way.
Exactly.
You see what I'm
No
saying?
doubt. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why we here though. Put this stuff on the
Right.
table. Let
Right.
them take and pick from the pickies. Let's take their pickings
Yeah.
from the we gotta get.
Masculinity. That's. I'm listening to you guys because that's like a thing that I feel like on my journey of life. I mean, I'm 44 years old, so where I'm at as of today in my journey in life, like that's something that I feel I don't have. I can't say that I stand on any one thing completely when it comes to that, because I'm one of the people, like you said, I wasn't taught that. I wasn't taught in a proper atmosphere. So the things that I've learned is things like vulnerability. I've been involved the last few years of my life, like making a way for myself in real estate, right? And so I always heard when I was younger, the man is the head, and and then you just create an image in your mind and you think that the man is the head because of masculinity. So she should listen to what I say or do. And then once I start getting involved in real estate and having a couple of investments and things of this nature, I start realizing and thinking to myself, like, dang, the bottom of the house, the foundation and the stability of the house is actually the head. Any great builder knows that the foundation. So I tell my son all the time, anytime you want to do something great in life, right? The bigger the building, the deeper the hole. So it's like the foundation of it is more, to me, that's masculine, to be able to be the foundation of something in your life as well as others is a form of displaying masculinity, as well as saying vulnerability. I've learned that I don't have to prove everything. I know that I could maybe, I don't know, for lack of better words, I can beat someone, or I'm stronger, or whatever things that would tie into being masculine, but being vulnerable enough to know, like, hey, bro, you got it. Sometimes I think that that's one of the ultimate forms of actually being masculine, not having to like flex your power or your muscle at every turn. Because I know in the environments that I've been in, grew up in, and or associated myself in, that was a big thing, like to show it immediately. I'm the strongest, and whether it's movies I've watched, whether it's any situation I've seen in my personal life, it's never actually what we are considering as masculine, the strength. It's never that person who runs things. It's always the person who has the mind, who has the willpower, who has the discipline, who has the courage. Because a lot of times, in order to be masculine, you have to make very tough decisions. And in order to make certain tough decisions and not run from these decisions, it takes a huge amount of courage to be able to do that in a lot of situations, because it's like a war. And so in war, there's casualties on both sides. You have to be disciplined and centered enough to know that although it will be casualties on both sides, I'm still making the proper decision for the greater good of all, right? That's I'm saying from what I've learned, or from what I believe as it stands today in my life, that is a form of masculinity. It takes powerful men, it takes powerful people rather, to make those type of decisions, to be masculine in that way. It takes, you know, certain amount of courage and things like that. But I'm definitely interested in hearing, because I'm learning, you know what I mean, on this specific topic.
I say.
You know, this is interesting because when you get down to the real bottom line here, men have been programmed to believe and think that they get women.
Just having this conversation. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
You have never, ever gotten
a woman.
the woman.
That's right.
She put out the energy. She put out the pheromones. She could just look at you. She is attracting you. Now you're jumping through all these hoops thinking you're doing something, man. I was rapping to her, man. I blew her mind. She allowed you to feel like you blew her mind because she is programmed, right, to attract. She's programmed to do this. You see what I'm saying? So your ego got to get out of it. About what I'm doing and what I did. See, man, let me tell you something, man. No, you're caught up in it's an illusion. You see what I'm saying? So you have to, here's the bottom line for you as a man, in my opinion. I happen to have had 13 teachers, and it wasn't until my last teacher, Baba Dick Gregory, passed away that I realized that I had 13 teachers in my life. 13. I mean, and I'm fortunate because my parents, you know, I grew up in a house with 2 parents and the whole thing, you know, and I was talking about my trauma one day, right? And people's like, that ain't nothing, because everybody feels like their trauma is deeper than yours. Bottom line here. When you are the CEO of a company, you start a business, because look at this as business, because a relationship is business, especially if you get married in the Western civilization. Marriage, that's a business. It really got nothing to do with you. This has got to do with the state. Right. You know, that's a whole nother thing. We won't go there today.
Yeah.
When you are the corporate head, you're going to need 2 important departments. One is management. Management is looking for opportunities to grow the business. And you have security. Security is looking for problems. You know, sometimes security will create some problems. Y'all know about this. Your security will create some problems so they can seem important. Look what I did. I saved you. You know what I'm saying? What happens is when we've been through trauma, and you've been through trauma, if you was raised in this system of the Western world, you've been through trauma. I don't care how good this, unless you grew up in a, you know, off the grid and some special family by the river. You've been through trauma. Just looking at the television for a little while, you being traumatized, you being programmed. So what you do is a person who's been traumatized creates a security guard who's looking for problems. If your security guard becomes too strong, then management, right, can't make proper moves because everything that they try to do to make the business better, security's talking about, no, it's gonna be messed up. We can't go over there because see, them people over there, they shysters and their contract ain't no good. And they're always talking disagreeable. In this world, sometimes we've created more of a security guard. You can't trust women. You can't do this. You can't go to these side of tracks. You know, I was in Detroit and they told me I couldn't walk down the street in Detroit. I wanted to walk down the street to Motown, 2 miles. And everybody told me, man, no, you ain't gonna make it, man. This Detroit, man. This Detroit. Man, I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. I don't know if you know nothing about that spot. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have fear like that. But if you have these premonitions in your head of something is going to be bad, then it is. You see, we have to get to this place where we can balance the manager, which is opportunity, with security. But when you meet a woman, these two factors come online about who you are. You've got to be in your place, in your space, and be comfortable with yourself. If you're not comfortable with yourself, and if you don't understand what an opportunity is versus what could be a problem, because most of the times we're taught to attract problems. We're attracting it. And you're talking about she did this and she did that, brother. You know what I'm saying? You fell into that. You was after it. And if it's just about the sex, you need to say, look, all I want to do is sleep with you. All I want to do is, I just want to, hit it 1 or 2 times. That's it. Be honest. They might be down with that. But if it is something where you're looking for family, you're looking to really build something, you know what I'm saying? You also have to realize that she is the booty. The woman, this whole thing is fashioned after woman. This whole thing, the money and everything is fashioned after technically the Black woman. The whole thing.
Right.
We don't even realize that money is Mooney, which has to do with the menses. This has got to do with femininity. And sometimes it doesn't look like that because the men are in control.
Yes.
You see, you have to realize that if you've got a great idea, you need to be able to bring it to the woman or the women in your life. And say, what do y'all think? You can't say, look, this is what we do. And they'll give it to them. Because women have an attention to detail sometimes that we may not have. They have an attention to detail that we may not have because they're very, they can change. They like the situation to be as good as it could possibly be. Absolutely. So I always say to be the man sometimes is to kick back and be quiet. And have women who can do different things. They got different abilities that you may not have as an egotistical man trying to be a man in America. You got your, you know what I'm saying? I'm a man, that whole thing. What is it? But like Sadiki said, it depends on where you coming from. So one of my greatest teachers was a Dogon priest, Dr. Kwaku Ando. Oh, he dropped so much on me about being a man and about being an herbalist and dealing with people, because it's all agriculture. It's a garden. Your family, this is a garden you're growing here. This is, what are you planting in the soil? How good is the soil? Well, how good is the soil? You're talking about how good is the plant or the fruit? No, how good is the soil? So once we create those foundations and we find people and, and realize that we're not in control of this whole thing. That's right. They said, well, men cheat more than women. No, you don't know. A woman, they ain't gonna leave no phone number in no pocket.
Right.
You see, that's you slipping. You know what I'm saying? A woman is this whole, she's on a whole nother level. You can't even understand how she thinks. You can't make no baby. You can't be, start from a, couple cells and create this automatically. That's some deep stuff. So don't think women. You don't. Right. You have to know thyself. Once you got that together and you begin to attract and have the discipline to be yourself at all times. People say, well, Dr. B, you wild, man. I am. You have no idea to do what I do. You know how many stories I've heard? People come sit on my couch in my office over the last 34 years. And even in hip hop, what I dealt with in music. Yes, it's a lot that people are dealing with. So once we have ourselves together, that is going to be your real foundation. And like you said, when you mentioned, who was that mentioned it's the foundation of that house? The man needs to be the foundation. You in the basement a lot of times.
Yeah, that's what that's what I'm saying. You at the bottom a lot of times, and it's holding everything up.
Holding it up. And you need to be there to hold it up. Even when it gets crazy. When the storm is happening, you're the captain of a ship. There's going to be storms.
Yeah.
Right. What are you going to do? You're going to raise the sails? You're going to try to go through the storm? You're going to try to go around the storms? Or just float with that? You have to make those choices. And when a woman sees that you're able to make those choices, and one other thing I need to say, a lot of times my clients come to me, and a lot of times I do counseling for, in relationships, right? And the man says, she's always creating problems for me. I said, well, sometimes a woman's job is to test you. She's going to create a whole obstacle course for you, small ones. Because if you can't deal with them little things, she know the big ones is coming. How are you going to deal with the big one? Because a real foundational woman is going to test you so that we can make sure this thing is strong. And if you can't deal with that, and you got all emotional, you mad, throwing TVs out the window and all that, if she sees that, you're not the one. You're showing your sons and your daughters, and your daughter now wants to be like, she wants a man like that. So we have to create balance, that homeostasis foundation.
It's really refreshing because when I think about, the idea of masculinity, I know it definitely has evolved and it's evolving. And a lot of people, were given a definition of masculinity of the man is the protector and the man is the provider. And those were material things or just physical things. I physically protect my home, and I, monetarily, I provide for my family. But we're evolving to understand that those are, that's just one sort of narrow understanding of protection and provider. When you talk about, creating a foundation, or you're talking about the man as a gardener, you're really talking about, what sort of ecosystem is the man creating, right? So if I were speaking to a group of young men, and this question came up, I would just simply say, if masculinity and manhood, if you are creating an ecosystem of joy and peace around you, then you are demonstrating true masculinity. If you are creating disruption, disharmony, tension, anxiety, if all those things are around you, no matter how you feel about yourself as a man, then you're not living in true masculinity. You're not being a true man, because a true man, a person who is really just in true masculinity, does not have an environment of chaos around him. He just doesn't. And if that environment does exist, then that man finds a way to look at himself, to do a radical examination of himself, to find ways to move out of the disturbances. What is disturbing me? Am I being challenged by my woman? Am I being challenged by my children? Am I being activated, triggered? What's causing me to lose my balance and to therefore create disharmony in my home? Right. So what is that? So I would just simply say masculinity for me is someone who creates joy and an environment of joy and peace. That's it. That's it. Is there harmony? Is there love? Is there joy? And there's peace? Because all of those things we talk about, protection, all of those things will fall into that. If there's joy and peace, you cannot not be providing. If there's joy and peace, you cannot not be protecting. If there's joy and peace, you cannot not be providing emotional content to the home. So the foundation for me, am I contributing everything I can to maintain an environment of joy and peace and love?
Yes.
I agree.
So let me add this to what everyone is saying in regards to manhood. I rarely hear about this. Healing and transformation is manhood. All the things that we're talking about is based off of our willingness or lack of willingness to heal and transform ourselves. If we're talking about problem solving, that's about healing and transformation. Does that make sense? If we're talking about peace, that's about healing and transformation. If we're talking about leadership, purpose, vision, goals, all of those things are rooted in healing and transformation. And we know obviously why the healing and transformation is necessary, based on us being taken away from our innate spiritual intelligence, essence, so on and so forth. So that healing and transformation is necessary. And not just for men, but across the board. Healing and transformation is not talked about enough. We talk about so many topics. Healing and transformation gets left out.
I think when you talk, and I think that's beautiful, brother. And so when I mentioned that phrase, radical examination, when you are in that state, then you know that there's healing that has to happen, right? Because for me, I talk about these two terms: radicalized masculinity and then the de-radicalization of masculinity. A de-radicalized masculine person is transformative. He transforms the environment around him. But in order to become de-radicalized in your approach to masculinity, you have to first say, what aspects of me are radicalized? What aspects of me disrupts the harmony of the home? What aspects of me breaks the foundation? What aspects of me creates a pesticide like soil around me? What aspects of me does that? And that involves, you're absolutely right, brother, that involves healing. And healing is a scary thing, right? Because that means you have to look at those dark places in you, or those places in you where the light has not come in yet. And then that involves, and I think what most men struggle with this concept of looking at a different definition of masculinity is it comes down to, well, if I put this down, then what? Then what am I picking up? I've been taught to understand masculinity from a certain perspective. It reminds me of the allegory of the cave, Plato. These people were bound in the cave, and images were being shown to them, and that was their reality. right? So if you look at men, we have a certain reality that has been projected in front of us. Somebody broke out and went to the top of the land, and they saw this whole different understanding. They got a whole different perspective, and they came back down and they said, hey, look, there's some things that you haven't even thought about. Come with me. Some did, but those who didn't, they were afraid. And they were afraid of what that on the other side of these things, what does that look like? Does that look like I won't be able to be a protector? Will I be a lamb in the midst of lions? Will I be attacked? Will I be too soft? So all of these fears come up. But for me, again, I say, look, you can be everything you want to still be. You can be a fierce protector of your home, but you will know when not to be that. When your woman disturbs or she activates something in you that disturbs you, you know now it's not the time to go upside her head. It's the time for radical examination and healing. So it's that balance. The brother spoke about that homeostasis. It's that balance, and that balance does come through healing and transforming yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And that technically that's alchemy. So alchemy, the first step of alchemy, right, is calcination. It's the first step of personal alchemy, where you're changing things from one state to another. So the first step is you've got, let's say you find gold, and gold ore has got other things in it. That rock has got lots of other things, and you heat it, and different things show up or burn off at certain temperatures. You see, but that first step, that calcination, is deep, because you've got to figure out, you got to do the division. What is it that our goal is? You know what I'm saying? And that's where you have to be, you have to have an outcome. I think, in all my workshops, I ask people to write down 3 things. What are you? Who are you? Then why? Why are you who you are? Why? Your why is huge. How, you don't have to worry about. But what, you got to get down to what you are based on some real stuff here. And like I said, a lot of times it's not based on anything but what you've been projected. But, we have been given this worldview that's not the same when you get outside the box. So I've always called myself a black sheep. I might come on the farm and hang out with the white sheep. You know what I'm saying? And, we hang out, dance together, but I'm leaving. I'm going over the fence at night. The white sheep are going to be scared. No, please don't go. You can't go out there. It's dangerous. Wolves out there. The black sheep is not concerned about wolves. That's not your concern. The black sheep, or even the deer is not concerned about the wolves. That's not what they're thinking about. They're not afraid of the wolf. In fact, what they're doing is they're doing what they do at the best. They're being their best, because the wolf is not coming at the deer that's doing his best. The wolf is looking at the deer that's got a lot of lame, his leg is dangling, or he's old, or you're too young and you kind of got a little away from your people. That's the one the wolf is going towards. But if you're showing yourself, you're being your best. That's why I tell folks, first you need to read the book, The 4 Agreements. You need to always be doing your best. Your words need to be your bond. If your word is not strong, you see what I'm saying? Your word, I program computers and music. The program has got to be strong. You see, if the word is not strong, if the ones and zeros are not set up just right in your life, the ons and offs, the agreeables and non-agreeables, the things I will do, the things I won't do. Once you have that foundation, you have no fear. But they keep, the projection of fear is deep. This is like the anticipation of pain or danger. False evidence appearing real, false expectations. And fear is what programs the mainstream system, and people have become inferior and have got an inferiority complex. People say, well, don't that worry you, Dr. B? That has nothing to do with me. I don't care what they're doing. It's none of my business. Even the news, I watch it, it's like entertainment. Man, you believe it? They've never told you the truth. They've never honored one contract. It's never the truth. I was been on the news before, and they didn't tell the truth about me. They had me at a place. They had me at this, Northridge University doing a lecture, and they said, well, Dr. B was there talking about health and wellness, and the next thing, and he talked about giving out condoms to the people. Huh? You ain't never heard me talk about no people wearing no latex? What are you talking about? Well, you're safe sex. Look, that's you. This is your perspective that's been given to you, what you should be afraid of. Aren't you afraid of disease? No, we're already in disease. The system is sick. What we're looking for is to do the alchemy, to figure out who we are. I'm not worried about competition. And this is a big one. I'm gonna leave it off of here. This thing about competition has got us really well. I mean, even my people who are in the same business that I'm in, they're worried about competition. That's what you're worried about. You got a store, you're worried about what the store is doing up the street. No, you make your store the best, make the environment the best, make your product the best. Yeah. Price it where it needs to be. Well, Dr. B, your stuff is very expensive. No, it's expensive because I'm using the very best ingredients. I mean, some of the stuff I get, you don't even know what it is and where it came from. You see, I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. And there's people, right, that look for that high quality. So you've got to get to balancing creativity with competition. If you are very creative. So as a musician, I'm a jazz musician by trade. I've been a jazz musician since I was a child. Jazz is about improvisation. Jazz is love. Jazz is about, I don't know what's going to happen when I get there. I'm going to improvise in the moment. In the moment when I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't do lectures and have it all written down. I can't do that. It's in the flow. It's happening. But we've been told to live in a loop. All the music you listen to now, if it's mainstream, it's a loop. It's the same thing around and you're all pumped up and dancing, right? Getting into a trance, but you're being programmed to agree to being loopy. And you think that the past repeats itself. So you're looking at your past all the time. Oh, it's going to haunt me. My past don't repeat itself. Why? Because I'm focused on living in the now, which I call to now. Once you're there, I have no idea. When Jasir, when you call me, we're going to talk about this. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying. It sounds good. I don't know. What is it to be a man? I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I have to be there in the moment to be and be able to respond or react in the moment while it's happening, because I can't give you a program and say, this is what it is. Because when I look at some of my people from the motherland, you might not call what they're doing masculine at all. They wearing makeup and dancing, and you know what I'm saying? You look at the birds, the male bird, he's the one with the feathers, he better have the nest. He's dancing, the female looks kind of regular, she's just kind of watching to see who can dance the best. You see, so the words and the language have to what? We got to first get rid of some of the agreements we've had, but get to this place where we're being alchemical in the moment. Burn off what's not you. Be you all the time. Be real and speak truth, and have that balance so that you don't have to go with how. Here's another thing. You don't get in a relationship with a new woman and start telling her about all the other relationships and what went wrong and what didn't work out and what you didn't like. This is brand new. You've never been here before. This is a brand new relationship. This is a brand new situation. We got to create the most right now, because who I was yesterday, I'm not. The Dr. B of 5 years ago is not the Dr. B of today. I don't even know that guy. I don't even agree with him. You see? But when we become, and there's a really good show out, and I'm going to mention this show, The Man That Fell to Earth. I don't know, Bakari, you watching that? The Man That Fell to Earth?
I will. I've heard about it. I will.
Everybody needs to watch this show, The Man That Fell to Earth. It is so deep because it's talking about exactly what I'm saying. It's about this cat that comes from another planet, a planet where the people are like bees, basically. They're like drones. But he comes to the Earth, and he's, it's a whole thing about him becoming a black, quote unquote, human being. Oh man, it's heavy, 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 heavy. But the main thing in it, they're talking about the most powerful force in the world is what? Being creative in the moment. It's being able to improvise. So I can't look at the last few women I've been with and say, well, women always, you know how women are. You don't know women. You don't know women. They're not the same. You don't know men. You don't know your parents. You don't know yourself all the time. So if we can get to this place and agree that I am brand new, here's my statement every day. I allow myself to be free. Not I am, because your subconscious says, no, the hell you ain't. You've been through too much. You ain't. Your subconscious is arguing with you all the time. But if you say, I allow myself to be peaceful. I allow myself, as the brother said, to be joyful, to create joy. I allow myself to be the better person. I allow the woman to win, because you can't argue with no woman, brothers. You crazy? You're not winning. She can live on 5 dimensions at one time. You can't. You want one dimension, trying to prove yourself. I told her, I slapped her across the room. She took that slap, didn't she? You better watch out because this is a different situation and it's changing all the time, just like nature. It's not the same. So we got to be on our feet.
No, you know, I'm just going to add one thing to that, and I think it's important for people who are listening, who are not in this mindset. Some of these concepts may just seem foreign to them or just out of reach, but I do love the idea of being in the now, and I think that the people have to understand that when you're in the now, you're living life not in the past, which is about death, or the future, which is about fear. You're living in the now, but in order to do that, you have to have a practice. You have to, and it does take practice. So anyone listening to this who feels like I can't get there because that's not the place I am, just understand that everyone talking that didn't get there overnight. And to live in the now, it's about whatever practice you find to do that. If it's about affirmations, confirmations, meditation, prayer, anything to keep you centered in the now, and you do that every day. If you make a mistake, if you get upset with your mate, your woman, and you get loud and you don't beat yourself up, just try to get back to the now where you're practicing being a certain type of man. And just know that it's not going to happen overnight because the condition of your thinking didn't happen overnight. It's been years. As a matter of fact, it was even before you were born. It was encoded in your DNA by the people who brought the fear, brought the ideal of radicalized masculinity. So I just think it's important. I love to talk about just the practicality of things. And the practicality of it is that it's not an overnight situation. Everything that you're hearing right now, we didn't wake up at just one day and start talking about alchemy. We didn't wake up one day and start talking about healing and transformation. We didn't wake up one day with an understanding of how foundations work in real estate. We didn't do that. Those things came through practice. So don't beat yourself up. Just make sure that when you fall down, to get back up and to be kind with the people around you, because those people will support you in your journey. Man,
I'm so glad you said that. Y'all are on fire today. Everybody's on fire today. I'm glad you came with that, Bob, because out of respect for time, I want to get to the last question of the day. But I'll start it off with the question with another African proverb. There's one African proverb that says that it is not a person's laziness, stupidity, or lack of initiative that causes issues or joy in their life. It is simply what has been deeply rooted in their mind. Right?
That's pathology. That's what Dr. B is talking about, the subconscious mind. I mean, the neurological self, the central nervous system, that's pathology. What you do the most, that's what shows up in your life, right? So I think that's very important for people watching to just know what you do the most. That's what shows up in your life. Pathologies can be changed. Earlier, Dr. B mentioned repetition. That's the key to all of it. So when we talk about repetition, we're talking about consistency. What your thoughts are, what your speech is, what your actions become. All of that is pathology. So whether we're dealing with ourselves, whether we're dealing with our mates in relationships, our purpose, our vision, our goals, manhood, womanhood, you're dealing with pathology. And that's why earlier I mentioned childhood trauma, and someone else mentioned if the mother or father was in the home and what that was like, what were those experiences. Dr. B mentioned in the womb. Another brother mentioned just the encoding and what takes place in the womb. So all of these things play a role from a standpoint of pathology.
Exactly. And what struck me when I first found this is they said what's deeply rooted in the Ori. The deeply rooted means from the womb to now in the present is what's playing out for you. No matter how it looks, that's what it is. My question to everybody here, because we all grew up in this Western world, right? And I think we've all had our moment that we had our epiphany that what we have learned is some bull.
Still do.
Still do.
Still do.
right?
Still do.
But we all had that. I know I remember my moment. We have that moment where we figured out, okay, everything I learned from the hood, I call it post-traumatic hood disorder, basically. From the hood, I need to scrap that. From any males that I've learned from the hood or my household, I need to scrap that because whatever that is that has been rooted in my mind has not been working because I'm at this point,
Mm.
right? I want to ask you, brothers, if you will be so candid, and it is, I want to keep the time, but if we can be so candid, what was your moment where truth, as Topic said, smacked you in the face and you had to be honest about what the next step is? Because I want to make sure I define this. Truth to me, truth and honesty is not the same thing. Truth is
Well,
speaking what you've seen or what you have experienced. Expressing that is verbalization. Honesty is the action taken after you speak your truth. So when did you come to your truth and then make an honest decision to live differently and uproot what has been planted in your ori or your mind?
Well, for me, there's a couple, but there's one main one where I was the hip hop, the head of the hip hop community in Southern California. I was the man. You came to me to get your record happening. I was on top. I was making a couple $1 million a year. I had the cars, the girls, the houses, everything. I was the man. You'll never see that in the hip hop stories because I never do interviews about it because there's certain things I'm not going to talk about. But what happened was at the height of my career, I was always in these meetings where these folks had these suits that didn't wrinkle and they didn't look like us and they ran the industry and they were people from the they owned liquor companies and they ran the prison industrial complex. They owned prisons. They were running the industry and telling us what content to put in these records.
Mm.
That hit me. And I realized that I was an executive at this time. I had like 15 platinum records, gold records, the awards, all of that. These guys were telling us what to do and how to do it. They're threatening us. There was always people following me. Every phone call was tapped. Every woman I met, check it out. Every woman I met worked for them. They were agents. Fine. I just met her in a club where he had a drink. You find out later, these is agents. But what hit me was when I got really sick. I started gaining lots of weight. I couldn't sleep at night. I would wake up. I would stop breathing. I couldn't feel my hands. I knew that I was really sick. I go to the doctor and they basically, I have to go to many specialists. They said, well, you have a very rare metabolic disease. Your body is fighting itself. You have an autoimmune system thing like we've never seen. We give you maybe 6 months or a year to live, maybe at the outside. Go get your business together. And I asked them, well, what could you do to help me? And they said, well, there's nothing we can do. We can give you some steroids to keep you comfortable. Now, I'm wealthy. I said, look, I got $500,000 under my bed, cash. Nope, that's not going to help you. You know what I'm saying? And I realized at that point that if I believed him, if I listened to him, because I asked him, what do you do? And he said, well, we treat the illness. You give the illness a treat. You maintain disease. You don't cure anything. You don't fix anything. At that point, I made a new choice. I got to help myself here. I got to go deep into myself, figure out who I am. Because if I believe this guy in the white coat, I'm going to die. I'm out of here. So I walked away from the whole industry. I walked away from music, walked totally away. And I began to listen to opinions of people that fit where I was at, who I'd like to be. I studied everything about natural health I possibly could be to save my life. I got a whole new goal. My thing was not to be a part of a system anymore that was controlling my mind. And I want to say this because we're talking about manhood. The records that we were creating was controlling the idea of manhood, womanhood. The brothers and sisters were telling their story from the street at first. But then they got to the point where somebody else was telling you what story to tell. Somebody else was dropping off guns, in railroad cars, on the railroad track. Somebody else was dropping off old beat up Ramblers full of cocaine in the hood. This thing was controlled on a whole nother level. So once I saw that, I said, everything about us is under control. What are you going to do? And that's when I decided to cut my own path. You see, and here I am many years later, my doctor's dead. You know what I'm saying? I learned about natural health, but I learned also, even with music, I still do music, but I do music for me. I'm not doing it for the industry, because this whole thing is an industry. What a man is, what a woman is, what the truth is, the news, it's all a program. Once you realize that, right, you begin to change. And I'm going to say this last thing. When I realized that even beyond the herbal healing and the medicines and all that, it was about your subconscious. That's when it got deep. The programming of your subconscious, which is 1,000,000 times stronger than your conscious mind. Your subconscious is running the show, and you don't even know how to fix it. Your conscious mind can't fix your subconscious unless you're extremely disciplined. So what I began to do is help people change their subconscious by putting new programs in their head. And one of the things that we have to do is talk about words. So when we do our big workshop, y'all, big piece is change your language, change your life. Your words don't even mean what you mean. You see, what you call things. So like, I could say, well, my father was mean growing up, and he treated me this way and he abused me. We changed that too. My father challenged me. My father challenged me to be the great person that I am. I was in a relationship. It was terrible. She stole everything. If she stole it, it wasn't yours. You understand what I'm saying? She took it. You have to change your vibration to fit a situation that's moving towards the goal that you create. Once you do that, you don't care. I don't know what's going on in society. They keep saying it's getting worse. Is it? Is it getting worse? I was a child in the 60s. It ain't getting worse. You don't know what it was to be watching Walter Cronkite. You may die, and the Russians may bomb everything every moment. It's the same. It's just that now you got the internet, and it's coming to you fast. So let's all look at the great possibility. Even us being here together on this right now, this is huge. This is monumental. Yeah. Us being here who are successful men. We're successful. You know what I'm saying? So we are creating a new paradigm. It's not about what they're doing and what happened and what was bad. What's good right now? What's good, brother? How can we work together? So once we do that, we create the new idea of what being a man is. And even with women, creating what is a woman, what's being a child. We do it now. So it's not about what's disagreeable. It's about what's agreeable. Let's change the wording. Let's change the vibration. Let's change the rhythm. And I know the MC know what I'm talking about. Let's change the record. Change the record. It's time to get the people to go drink. You play a slow song, right? It's time to get the people dancing. So you got to become the DJ. You got to do the remix. And if you're ready to do that, then we're here to help you.
Shay, thank you, Baba.
Yes, sir. I love that. Again, I just when the people are listening to this, I always like to just drop a little bit as an addendum. When a brother talking about changing the vibration and the frequency, you can do that through meditation. You can do that through prayer. You can do that through quieting your brain, where our brains activate in a beta state, where all the stimuli. But when you sleep, it's in the alpha, and when you meditate, it's in the theta. That's the slow down. That's when ideas start coming to you, and your conscious begins to then process all of that bits of information that you got that the conscious only can receive at one time, really just process like 100, 200 bits of information, but it's millions of bits that are hitting you. So it's in meditation, it's in prayer, it's in quiet time when you start to slow down and your brain begins to then connect to those things that you may have missed on the conscious level, things that can really help you to activate towards the person that you want to be. So again, the people who are listening that may think, I can never do this, there's ways that you can do this. Look up Dr. B's work, look up, Bakari, look up Jasir Franklin, a brother, look up whoever is accessible, and they're putting out information to help connect with those people and learn how to do those things, because it is a learning process. It's a process, and the process it takes time. But once you get in there, the brother talked about, Brother Carl, you mentioned about just, habits, right? A belief is something that we just think over and over and over again. But if you replace that thought with something and just start thinking that over and over and over again, then you change the trajectory of your thinking, which then changes the trajectory of your action. For me, just real quick, it's been several times that I had aha moments. My first one was I joined the Nation of Islam, and I learned about, really what's going on with the social dynamics of this country and, the larger Black diaspora. That was an aha moment for me. And then that made me want to get out and just be more active, to do my part to help, Black people really achieve the things that they can really achieve as a people. Then another one, when I had my first child, I'm a father, biological father, and I'm a bonus that I'm a stepfather. But when I experienced being the first time being a biological father, that was true for me, because then I had to look at what type of man I was and what type of man I wanted to be for her. What type of man did I want the projecting of character, what type of character did I want to project in front of her? Then when I got married and I became a stepfather, then I had to look at, patience, and I had to look at ego. So I think for me, aha moments happen all the time. We just don't realize it, because we are in the conscious so much, and all these things we're trying to get from point A to point B, that we don't realize aha moments are happening all the time. We just have to slow down. And that's really the thing. Someone mentioned that. I think slowing down and taking time to connect to yourself. Again, prayer, meditation, silence is so important. You can do that. And once you get into that sort of silent, that slow down, then you'll find all of those things that you are missing about who you are and what you're receiving will start coming to the surface, and you can properly deal with it. More properly deal with it.
Anybody else? Your
Yeah.
pivotal
Like,
moment.
For me, it was at the point or even when we spoke earlier about like the power of now. I read a book called The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, and it just spoke about like quieting your mind, you know what I mean? Like becoming one with yourself, really understanding what that is, because your mind is always moving. So to quiet your mind takes a lot of discipline. And I agree with Mark Winkler when he says that it's a learning process. See, I feel like we're in a world right now that's conditioned to be right now. Everything is right now. There is no more, let's figure it out, let's grow it. Let's, like a garden, like we spoke about a garden earlier, like we don't grow anything for the majority. People have an idea, it's something that they want, boom, I want it right now. And also if it doesn't happen right then, they give up or they quit. So for me, it came to a point where I was like, well, what would happen if I tried to quiet my mind? And this is where I completely agree with Mark, is because nothing happened initially, because it was hard to do. I didn't understand what it meant. But once I started getting a little better at it, and this is why I agree with meditation, things of this nature, then a lot of doors started to open. And things, I remember one time Michael Jordan was like, he was just making so many in the game, and it's a famous clip, and he just went like this, like, I don't know, I just can't miss. That's how I had an aha moment with myself, like, wow, if I really take control of what's happening to me and stop letting life happen to me, but start happening to life, I'm getting different results now. Like life is not just happening to me. So I start looking at things like that. I also had an aha moment when I had my son as well, because it was a direct reflection of, I tell my son, even to this day, he just turned 10. I tell him, like, you saved my life, because I did not care about the outcome, not the outcome. I did not care about any outcomes that were disassociated with what my goals were, period. I didn't care. You could say, you're going to get in trouble, this is going to happen. I don't care. I already understand that. But I'm so focused on this. It was not until I had my son that I start looking or having a broader perception of myself and who I was as a man. I also had, me personally, like, as of today, like I practice an alkaline diet, right? Eating for me was a big aha moment, because I started noticing the difference in my thinking, the difference in my body and my habits as well. Because for me, I always wondered about just controlling like sexuality and things of that nature, right? And it was told to me one day, like, if you can't control what you put in your mouth, you'll never control where, you know what I mean, where you place your privates at, you know what I'm saying? And I took it as light the first time I heard it, but when I digested it, I was like, wow, because a lot of times people will look at certain things that they practice, and because it's joyful to them or they enjoy it, they'll be like, I'm not addicted. It's just what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, I feel like we are addicted sometimes to these habits because we do it so much. And I know there's different things. I don't know what the initial days are, but I know some people are like, hey, if you do something for 30 days, you form a new habit. But what I do know, and I attest in my own life, is if you spend too much time at one place, you become that place. And it doesn't matter if you completely engulfed in it or not, but I start disassociating myself with certain places. And so once I did that, it gave me a clear vision to understand that, or to agree with myself, allow myself, as Dr. B said, like to be an ego per se. An ego knows that if I see another bird, I never have to question if it's an eagle because only eagles fly this high. I never question it. So it's like I start understanding like I'm an eagle or I'm a king, I'm a Black king on this earth. And I started, really holding myself accountable. And that was really an aha moment for me, because it's like a lot of us don't hold ourselves accountable and we just make excuses for the things that we already want. Sometimes when we ask questions to certain people, and the minute that they tell us something that's challenging, that differentiates from what we see fit for ourselves, it's like a conflict. But the minute somebody even remotely mentions something that you want to hear, you just agree with it because it's like, oh yeah, that's what I knew. You didn't know, that's just what you wanted to believe. When you start to challenge yourself, as I tell my son, anything worth having is worth working for. I believe that we all have a purpose in this life. And I know this will probably be for another time, but there was a couple of words that I wanted to just touch on real quick before this is over. Mark always chose to use the word joy. So I was waiting to see if anybody would ever choose the word happiness. But it showed me a lot because I try to live my life based on the mantra of joy and not happiness, as I believe that happiness comes from happenings. Joy is like, to me, the ultimate peace. And then there was another thing that I was curious in everyone's opinion, because I heard the word spirit being mentioned, the word soul. And so growing up traditionally under a Christian household, it's not my belief system as of today, but that's how I grew up. So we talk about the womb and the things that we were accustomed to, the things we were taught or brought into. I was wondering how everyone feels about that, like, because I was getting a little confused or not following all the way when we speak. It's of my belief as of today that we are our spirit being, right? Like all of us are our spirit being. A lot of times people say or point to their chest, I feel it deep in my soul, but I associate soul with being like the conscious, right? Like this is like the biggest battles in our lives happen in between our ears. Like this is the soul, like the consciousness. And I'm just curious, is this the thinking when everyone used that terminology? Because I know Mark used it. I know Dr. B used it. I think all of us used it actually. So I was just curious about that before we leave. Like, is that people, like, are people in agreement that we are like we have a soul and we are spirits, or how does that work? I'm just curious.
But I think that's that's a conversation that can go endless, right? But I will say that, if it's the part of you that speaks to you, that's inside of you, that's not of the world. I think a lot of people can give understandings of what that is, spirit versus soul, from a spiritual perspective, maybe from a Buddhist perspective or meditative perspective. So there's a whole lot of perspectives that you can get. But I think personally, if you find that when you speak of soul, you speak about staying in the seat of your consciousness and not being taken out, and that's what helps you to move from point A to point B, then that's your definition. That is what you walk with, right? Because if I give you what my understanding is, now you're going to have to grapple with that, and that's okay, right? But I'm saying sometimes it's just good that if you have an understanding that you feel has elevated you, that's keeping you in the seat of consciousness, that's not making you feel beholden to other people's understandings and other people's thoughts, then ride with that.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you feel like that no longer serves your purpose, then, then the conversation can happen. But I think it's difficult when we talk about those things, because the line always is drawn back to religion. It's always goes there. And then we all have different understandings of religion, or we have an understanding that may not serve our purpose. So I would just say, brother, if your understanding of a soul is your seat of consciousness, that you stand in your seat of consciousness, the thing that you said, that inner dialogue, right?
Yeah.
That if your soul is that, then let it be that, brother.
No, and I agree, because because the reason I was saying that, I was gonna end what I was saying with the aha moment of, I think people, men especially, not I'm gonna say men especially, just say people, we think too much and feel too little. That is what helped me. A lot of times people look at something and they think that that's what it looks like. That's what that thing looks like. But being rooted in that seat of consciousness, like when you say what made sense for you, that was the biggest aha moment that I had. Once I started feeling more than I was thinking, I started becoming who I was more, because I can be in a room where everyone is in agreement besides me. Or have you ever been a place where you're around so many people but feel alone? That was my aha moment. Like, I have to start feeling. I have to start saying there's something inside of me that God, however a person looks at or calls God, it's inside of me. I know that. And it tells me when I'm at the wrong place, it's like that, when a truck is backing up, beep, beep, I get those sensors all the time at different moments in my life. And that's what I identify as God, or that level of consciousness, that I have to feel that. I can't go with what everyone else is thinking is the right thing to do. I have to go with that inner feeling, because that is my so-called truth. And that was the biggest aha moment that I had. And I haven't had too many misunderstandings with myself, at least, right? Once I started moving in that way, like I'm super good and good with energy. Like this conversation that we've been having, like I don't have to agree with everything that a person says. I eat the meat and throw away the bones, but I'm always open and receptive. And before I wasn't, until I became, open with myself. So yeah.
It's your internal guidance system, brother.
Yeah.
Yes.
It tells you I'm going here. Wait a second. Something in me's not right. I don't feel right. I feel the homeostasis, the balance is not there anymore.
Yeah.
I want to go. I'm a vegetarian. I will eat some pork.
When you guys talk about that programming, that's the thinking part, right? Like they program you to think a certain way. We want you to think this. We want you to believe this, to think this.
To feel a certain way is even deeper. Not to think, but to feel. But let me just tag this really quickly. See, what we call something is not necessarily what it is. This is what we've all agreed to call something. Then we have what's called a reference of what something is. Somebody tells you what this is. That's a reference. That's not necessarily what it is. And you weren't there to see it. You just believe it or go along with it because it's been instilled into you that this is what we call a chair. But actually a chair, right, is not what you think it is. This is all energy. It's all based on frequency. It's based on light. It's based on sound. But there's a thing called a referent. You very seldom hear people use this word, a referent. A referent is an actual experience. You were there. It's not a reference. It's a referent. You see, once you start getting and you speak and live in a referent, this is what I know for sure. This is what I have actually experienced. And get out of references and get out of these labels and titles, everything changes. Because, I remember when Minister Farrakhan was breaking down, how he said, I'm taking all the titles away. We don't need no more titles. You're a lieutenant, you're a captain. Let's get rid of all the titles. A man, a woman, a this, you hip hop, you jazz. See, you get rid of these titles and just be. and get, like the brother said, that internal guidance, get out of the ideas that have been placed in you of what things are. Now, once you do that, and there's one place that we didn't go, Jesse, and this may open up, but I gotta say this because it's been burning on me for a long time. What physically makes a man, most times we look at is the penis and the testicles. Well, I'm into quantum physics. That's what I base everything on, quantum physics. And quantum physics is when you have a concept or a spiritual idea that actually can be proven. For me, that's it. Those two, when they come together, we got something. Well, in quantum physics, they realized that the penis is a pen. Pen is. It's a writing tool. When you are using your penis, you are writing. The head of the penis has more nerves on it than any other part of your body. The head of your penis actually glows with light-emitting diodes. Okay? And when you are inside the cave, the pyramid, when you're inside the temple, you're shining a light. And you're sending energy, which is writing on the walls of the temple. Question is, what are you writing? What are you thinking? What are you inscribing? What hieroglyphs are you writing? So a lot of times, we try, I'm getting this, look what I'm doing, man, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to make her this, and I need to get there. See those ideas, plus the ideas of all your beliefs from your family, from the world, unless you are really disciplined, you're focusing on writing something on the walls that could be the destruction of everything. So we, in the work that I do, we teach men to breathe in through the heart. So when you inhale, you imagine you're breathing in through the heart and out through the penis. But you need a goal. What is a goal? What is it? So you and the woman, y'all need to sit down and talk about a goal, because we're about to have a baby, not a physical baby. We're going to create an energetic orb that can be scientifically proven that the woman, when she hits orgasm, these orbs come out of her. So those are like your own local angels. They traveling through space. What are you creating? Those are your babies. So I say that once we are in that womb, that room, which is a womb, you're in the temple, you need to know what you're writing. And you and the woman need to have an agreement about what we're writing. So if it's love, joy, harmony, wealth, you just can't say wealth. How much money? How much are we talking about? 5 million, 10 million? Don't say a million, because a million is 500,000 and that ain't no money. You already got that. You know what I'm saying? Your body, your birth certificate's worth more than that. What we got to talk about is what you would really like to create together. You and this woman, when you're coming together, if you could just have this conversation. A lot of women, they're going to be like, well, you could look weird. I don't want to do this. That's good. Because each time we're in there, we're creating something, and we're creating the weather. We're creating the environment. What simple idea are we creating? Because your job, brother, is to breathe in through the heart, out through the penis, and write that on the walls of the temple. And sometimes you got to go in there and jackhammer them walls off, because there's all kinds of stuff written in there, layers and layers of drama, man. What is all this stuff? I don't care how positive she's a raw
graffiti on your.
she got locks, she got a singing bowl, she went to fire, she walks on fire. Bro, let me tell you something. There's some stuff she don't know that's in there. And a man has to be sensitive enough of his environment to look at what's in there and gently begin to remove these things, right? Because orgasm reorganizes the organism. So you're starting something new. You're shutting down the computer and restarting it. So each time you're in there, we have to be responsible about what we're writing. What are you writing? Because you think you're getting something. Yeah, you're getting something, all right. I'm not talking about the dis-ease. I'm talking about the malfunction of society is what you're taking on too, and you're a part of it. And you talk about what's wrong with the world. Well, what's right with you? What are you writing? You're the Tahuti. You're the writer. You're writing the script. What are you writing? So my thing is, take that in mind when you're about to go in there. Think about what it is you're creating. Talk to the person you're about to be with and say, what would you like? Now, I'm going to finish it with this. Brothers, you don't own the garden. You don't own God's garden. You are the gardener. You're the manager. That don't mean you own it. You don't own it. She is Mother Earth. She is Gaia. You know what I'm saying? She is ethos. So you got to talk with her. What would you like? Because she can grow everything in her garden. Everything grows, and it could be wild. Your job is to let's cut rows here so we can get to the pumpkins, and let's put the roses over there. Your job is you have the tools to work the earth. You don't own it. You don't own nothing. When you get out of ownership and you start saying, I am here to be a part of a beautiful system, you know, and what is it that we would like to plant? And each time you're in there, you're planting something, an idea, a program. Where are we going? What would we like? What would we like to manifest? And that's what you do every time you're in there.
A plan. Man, this has been amazing. This has been amazing. Did anybody else want to share their before we close out? Next, I want to give you guys a chance to let everybody know what you got going on, how to reach you, all that good stuff. Any classes you got coming up, all that good stuff. But if anybody else want to share their epiphany before we get out of here? I think B did his. Everybody went already, right?
Brother, I have so many, brother. I mean, I'll just do it quickly. 8 to 10 years old, my questions could never be answered in Christianity. That was the aha moment because it forced me to search for those answers myself. On the back end of that, I met Ashwa Kwesi 20 years later. So those questions were definitely answered, confirmed, all of that. But other pivotal moments, this second one, Jasir, I think you can definitely relate to this. I was recruited by the major colleges in the country as a receiver. University of Miami, Houston, Washington State, LSU for a receiver at that time were, not LSU, Tennessee, excuse me. Those colleges or universities were the top tier for that position. Houston, you had to run and shoot and all these other things going on. So the aha moment is me having the ability and earning those scholarships, right? Those offers, only to find out that my letters were being thrown in the trash. Basically, things were happening behind the scenes for that not to happen, right? So obviously the coach was a white person. So that was an aha moment for me to help me to understand how this physical material world operates. Aha moment. Another aha moment, I met Winnie Mandela. Aha moment because my mother, powerful woman. But this was different in seeing Winnie Mandela because of the power that she has in different realms in regards to her work. So it gave me a different perspective as far as women and revolution and those types of things, quote unquote revolution and those types of things. And that's a whole story in itself, which I won't tell. Another aha moment is meeting Atala Shabazz and Guy Lumumba, and just the conversation that took place at that brunch. So these are all different aha moments that's helped me as far as my development. And I have many others that has definitely inspired me and assisted me on my journey. But other aha moments I have is just seeing brothers and sisters and their authentic selves being manifested, to see them go from one level to another level, to see them go through the process. That's always an aha moment for me because it always shows what can happen when we tap into our divinity and we truly bring our essence online. So those, I'm always having aha moments, man, just to experience those things in life on a daily basis. Keeps me going, keeps me focused, keeps me passionate. So I'm having aha moments, man, all the time, man, every day.
I'll show you.
When I go back and watch this, it'll be an aha moment because it'll be things I can take from this to assist me in my life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
I'm going to give mine real quick, but I'm going to be hella vulnerable. So y'all be patient with me, please. My aha moment came. I'm gonna go back real quick. I spoke about what that African proverb said about what's deeply rooted in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what was deeply rooted in my mind was abandonment my whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it started from my mother. My mother allowed my stepfather that I had just met at the ninth grade to sock me out and bust my nose and mouth, everything, and she didn't do anything to stop it. From that moment, abandonment was a part of my script the rest of my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me angry. So I've always searched in women to try to get that abandonment issue erased by looking for them to please me the way I wish my mother would have done in that moment. It never happened. Dr. B seen me in something before. Mark has seen me in something before. But Mark saw the one that was the marker for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got married 2016 at Crass. I got married 2016, and I thought this was the one. But she was the one because, like Dr. B said, these women are here to teach you a lesson if you're paying attention. That's their purpose, and that's the purpose of a relationship to me that I had to understand and learn.
Mm-hmm.
They come to teach you. And this is for all young brothers and anybody who ever watched this video later on. I want to do this to be vulnerable to show that we all have stuff rooted in our mind that needs to come out. And this was my big epiphany. I had a bunch of other epiphanies I could go through too, but this was the one for me. So that was a very rocky relationship, very back and forth, very, very disrespectful on her part. But her disrespect was more of like slapping me into shape. I just didn't understand it in the moment. But she was letting me know that I don't owe you this. That is a scar that you need to heal in your mind, in your ori, the trauma that you experienced that doesn't belong to me. When she left, that shit broke me completely to the floor. I went to my Ifa. I started praying. I was crying. I didn't know what to do. And I just sat there in the middle of the floor and didn't know what the answer was going to be. And then the downloads began to come. This has nothing to do with her. This is for you to get your ass up and go do what you're supposed to do for you, because she is not a part of your journey. And that abandonment that you have been carrying is not yours. Let it go and become who you are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That was my aha moment. And from that day, I began to change the way I think, the way I process, the way I even interact with women, where I interact with men, how I approach every aspect of my life, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and financially, has been affected by that aha moment, to the point where I wanted to call four of my good brothers together today to have conversation, because the goal of this conversation is not just to have brilliant conversation. It's more about how do we help people with what we have learned.
I'd like to say something really quickly. You know, when you call me Jasir, you know, I mean, you and I know each other a whole other kind of way because we kind of married into the same family at one point.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how we met each other, right?
Yeah.
And I knew when I met you that you were going through something, right? And I see you now, and you know, I congratulate you on what you're doing, what you're creating, and your whole vibration has changed. But I'd like to help you, and this will help maybe everybody who's listening or on the panel. Mm-hmm. Let's go back. Mm-hmm. So your stepfather, let's say quickly, your stepfather, he punched you in the mouth, busted your lip and your nose, mm-hmm. and your mother did nothing to help you. Mm-hmm. Let's change that. My mother and my stepmother caused me to become who I am now.
Oh, of course. Yes.
But could you say that?
First, I'm confused on the stepmother part.
I mean, your stepfather. Your mother and your stepfather.
Oh, yeah.
Your mother and your stepfather. Could you say that?
My mother and my stepfather caused me to become who I am.
Now, when you say it, I want you to look straight. Don't move your eyes. Look straight ahead. The reason why because your eyes are telling another story. And we'll talk about that later when we do our workshop. Eyes straight ahead and say it again.
Okay.
Without looking any other place, because your eyes are like the mouse on a keyboard, on a computer, and it's accessing files. And every time you look to the left, it says, I'm living in the past, living in the past. So let's stay in the present. Just try it one time.
Okay. My mother and my stepfather caused me to be who I am today.
Okay, now, so when you and I get together, we're gonna work on that because your eyes are still going somewhere, right?
Right.
Once you're able to live in the present and see the power in this moment, that they, because of what happened to you, created this man who's bringing this panel together that's gonna change a lot of people's lives.
Exactly.
This panel is huge. We all got healing we need to do. We're not perfect, you know. And Baba Dick Gregory, before he passed, he said, Dr. B, I'm about to leave. He said, I'm giving you one of the batons. I said, what am I going to do with the baton? He says, because you got a piece of this that nobody else can do. And you make sure you give out pieces of the batons. So what I'm doing now is helping to give out batons. I'm teaching people to become herbalists, to be subconscious alignment, facilitators, teaching people to make medicine music and how to use music to heal. I'm teaching now more than I'm having clients. And that's beautiful. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for a long time, but it's better for me to teach people, for me, than you want me to fish for you? No, I'm going to give you the rods and show you where to fish and where the best part of the pond is. We, at this particular time, can all teach. We can't give it to you, and you're going to have your own reality about this. Because the way I learned it, what I went through, is crazy. My book that I'm writing now about my life is deep. I didn't even realize how deep it was. I didn't realize how deep it was. And, the things I've done. When I was traveling with Mother Tanetta Muhammad as her musical director, I had no idea how deep this was. To sit on the steps of the Washington, in Washington at the Millions More movement and realize that I was conducting an orchestra. I don't read music. How was I constructing, how did I do these things? It's because I was able to get in the moment and realize that everything that has happened to me has happened for a reason to help shape me. It's alchemy. And when you can have your eyes straight ahead and not move your head or nothing, and take the energy in this moment, which is incredibly powerful, that you created this vortex, brother. You called me out the blue. I ain't talked to you in a long time. And you said, I'm putting together a panel. And you said Menergy. And I said, whoa, this is about the menta. This is about the mind. It's not even about the masculine to me. It's about the mind. And once we can mind our mind and learn to mind our business, we're on it. So I want to thank all of y'all, and I respect all of y'all. I mean, some of y'all I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So thank you because you've given me some things to think about. Each person in the moment, it's not about my ego and what I know. I know nothing. I'm learning today. So much love to you all. This is a beautiful situation. And thank you, Brother Jasir, for setting this up. I know you got a long name. I know you as Brother J. You know what I'm saying? The rapper. Help me with my tickets. But, sometimes we just got to go to court and the cop might not even show up. So who's giving you a ticket? Give yourself a ticket. Arrest yourself, your parts of yourself that are no longer desirable, and just show up. So you will win.
Brother, that's beautiful, Dr. B. And I just want to just back it up for a moment and just thank you, Brother Jasir, for being vulnerable, right? For going to a place that is uncomfortable for men to go. Because when you do that, you give permission for other men to know that it's okay to be vulnerable and to express, because it's in that expression of pain that we can connect and we can begin to disconnect from the pain. So I really want to thank you, not just for this, man, but when we have moments like that, right, we can't overlook it. We have to stop. We have to acknowledge that with a Black man, especially, who's taught very much, most men in general, especially Black men, we're taught that we can't be vulnerable. We can't express those type of feelings because that means that we are no longer qualified to be a man, but you're still very much a man, right? But you still, and you are, Dr. B said, you're teaching right now. Your vulnerability is teaching that it's okay. It's giving permission to someone that you may not even know, brother, that you just gave permission to because you said it in the midst of us four, but you said it publicly, right? You're going to put it out publicly. So I just want to thank you for doing that and say that was a very special moment. And I didn't want that to go overlooked.
I say thank you, Barbara. Appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. And I just kick it off. You can find me at markrwinkler.com. Everything about me is there. You said you want to do that, so I'm gonna start it off. www.markrwinkler.com. There you go. And thank you, Brother Jashed. And thank you for all the brothers. As Dr. B said, I really have grown, and I'm glad I was able to stay in the moment and not think about what I had to do later on. And so this has been a special moment for me.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Brother Sadiki, where can they find you at, brother?
Sadiki Bakari, SADIKI Sadiki Bakari, Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me at sadikibakari@hotmail.com. Sadiki, SADIKI, Bakari, BAKARI, Sadiki Bakari @hotmail.com. That's for the Empowered Technology Mastery System or books. That's how you contact me. Thank you, brother.
Ashe. Topic, how can we get at you? What you got coming? How can they find you?
At Topic 626 or topic626.com. And I want to say too, also, I appreciate everybody here. You know, I definitely believe life is a journey, and this being one piece of the journey today is great. And I appreciate you even inviting me to be on this panel. Really got a lot of information for myself, and I'm a work in progress. So I'm an open book, transparent, clear. I don't have it all figured out. Don't want to pretend to have it all figured out, but I definitely learn. I love to learn, and I love to get new information. And today I got a lot of great information. I just want to say I appreciate all of you guys' energy, vibrations, spirits, and it's nothing but respect from my end.
Likewise.
Dr. B. Sirius, where can they find you, Baba? How can they get to those good herbs and find some of that good info you got?
Elevationtime.com. That's elevationtime, TIME.com is the website. Or you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook as Doctah, DOCTAH, the letter B, Sirius, SIRIUS, like the star. So that's Dr. B. Sirius on Facebook and on Instagram, Elevation Time. And I'll be doing a class next Saturday. There's an event coming up between the 3rd and the 9th. Our spiritual sun, which is Sirius, and our sun, which is connected to Sirius in a very special way, and the earth will be in perfect alignment between the 3rd and the 9th. This is why Independence Day in almost every country is between the 3rd and the 9th. It has to do with independence. You becoming independent in yourself and breaking away from systems. This actually happens every year. This year, it's much more powerful because we happen to be in this place in space called the photon band. And the photon band is a deep thing when you know every 13,000 years, we go through this cloud of light, which reprograms our DNA. So we have a section of our DNA they call junk DNA, which is actually coming online right now. So you want to be clear what you're programming your DNA to do by your thoughts, by your actions, by what you eat. So that class will be next Saturday, and I'll be on the Carl Nelson show on next Wednesday, and I'll be talking about that class and about this huge alignment, and you'll understand why there was the pandemic and all the rest of the stuff that's been happening on the radio, the news. They're jamming the frequencies because as long as you're in fear and in worry and all of those things, then you program this new DNA with more of that. Because these, these beings, their time is up. Their actual time is up, but they can get more time by you agreeing to this whole masquerade. So once you take off the mask and you begin to program yourself and plant in your own soil who you are, then everything changes. This is our time. We've been waiting for this for 13,000 years, and it's happening this year. And it's interesting because one of my teachers, he was a Native American medicine man, Chief Little Bear, Baba Dick Gregory, Dr. Kwaku Ando. Many of my teachers talked about the year 2022 and what was going to happen and why it was important for us to be in alignment, why it was important for us to do this actual, this meeting today. Because right now we're able to break free and reprogram our DNA. It doesn't program itself. You do by creating the environment. So this is a beautiful time. And if you'd like to go to elevationtime.com, you can't sign up yet. I haven't even put it up there yet, but there's a class. So get on the email list. That's at elevationtime.com. Check out the Carl Nelson show. I'll be on Wednesday morning. And, you know, thank you all. And you can find me. And like I said, I'm teaching classes. I'm teaching folks to do, you know, so you can be financially healthy, wealthy, and wise, you know, and those are the things that are available at elevationtime.com. Lots of articles and things about, you know, you and how you can take control of your vehicle. This is your ship. You got to become sovereign in yourself.
I say. Thank y'all. This has been grand, fellas. We're gonna close out. We should do this again, though. By the way, if y'all open.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
Yep.
We should do a broader thing, brother. We should definitely do this, but we should definitely think about maybe expanding the platform when we bring other people in and letting other people be a part of the conversations. I think this is a great opportunity. If we can, you know, where it's because you got to put it on your platform, and we may all share it on ours, but to actually bring people in a purposeful way and having the brother keeps saying workshop, but having a workshop, having a seminar around this conversation, I think is a beautiful thing. Because I think the brother's right. I think it's definitely time that we as men step up and start assuming the proper role, and that role is to be, you know, guiding the community to a better place. So we'll talk about that. Ashe.
And when we do this, we probably should talk about one subject, because everything that you've talked about, we could talk about all day. But one subject with solutions, because a lot of times when I'm invited to these things, it's all about the problem. Yeah. I don't even speak much anymore because I don't want to talk about the problem. What is the solution? If there is a solution to everything, nature has a solution. So I'm, you know, glad to be here with y'all because we're all solutionaries. That's what we got to be. Let's talk about the solutions. We know the problem. You know what I'm saying? But we don't want to give energy to the problem.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I selected everybody here. Everybody here is handpicked, selected for that reason. Everybody has a solution that they can offer. Everybody here. Topic has a solution because he is a voice. His voice speaks to somebody's mind, spirit, and soul. So as we change the frequencies in music, that helps the process too. And everybody else has something to offer you. So that's why I selected y'all the way I did, because everybody has something to give. So we are the solution. In other words, we are the solution.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, fellas. I'm gonna stop this. We out of here. Thank y'all for watching. If you're whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are that you watch this, look out for more to come. The brothers have already agreed to it. We give thanks and praise. We stay out of shape for everybody's presence. We sign off like that.
Travel light.